Thank you very much to The Economist and for the opportunity to speak here. I'm representing a network of 53 national societies in Europe, the IFRC, and we have with us the president of Hellenic Red Cross, so thank you very much for being here. I want to talk about the climate-related displacement and migration, as I think we already heard suggested, is very complex and very different across countries and across communities. We have seen many recent examples, if you just think about Europe, from heat, floods, storms, snows, that lead to very different humanitarian needs. In almost all cases, it increases people's vulnerability and it undermines their resilience. While what we now call disaster displacement is recognized as an increasing challenge in the context of climate change, there is a lack of research focusing on Europe as a destination area. I think that was already suggested. And also on the protection in related to cross-border disaster displacement, also within Europe. I would also like to say in this crowd that words matter. By talking about migration crisis or crisis that result in migration and displacement as a migration crisis, it's very easy for us to dehumanize the migrant communities and the refugee communities. They become like something bulky that we need to deal with. One area of focus of the IFRC with our partners across the International Red Cross and Red Crescent movement is the complex interrelationship among climate-related hazards, conflict, and migration. And I think the esteemed speakers before me talked about that. I would like to highlight here one example, which is a competition, one can say, between Tajikistan and Kyrgyzstan over water and access to water infrastructure, which has intensified already long-term disagreement over their border demarcation. In 2021, the installation by Tajik citizens of surveillance cameras over a water intake station located in this disputed territory triggered extremely violent clashes, and it ended up that 55 people died, more than 200 were injured, and more than 10,000 people were displaced. This is an example, I think, that highlights the need for international community and for policymakers to identify which are the entry points that we can have for cooperation, for conflict mitigation, and for targeted, timely responses, oftentimes before it happens. IFRC is leading the pillar called Preparedness and Response, building national and community response capacities as part of what some may know is the Early Warning for All initiative, in which the UN, several UN agencies and the IFRC, in our case also supported by our Climate Center, is working to accelerate action to ensure that communities globally are protected by early warnings. The initiative aims to have that done by 2027. I think it will take a bit longer. To maximize our preparedness and our response capacities, specifically in recognition of the interrelationships amongst climate-related hazards and migration, we have seen a need to go a bit further to address multidimensional crises across silos and as a whole. So we have established a think tank for that to address polycrisis. If I should call for some action, we need more research, we need more knowledge to understand the communities at risk and to better predict climate-related population movements. We need greater community preparedness systems, including anticipatory actions, early warning systems, forecast-based financing, really important, to be able to act before the events are happening. And we need affected communities prepared so that they can act before the disaster strikes. Climate mobility and impartial assistance must be integrated in relevant national and regional laws and policy that are related to disaster management, to climate adaptation, to risk reduction, and longer-term support. And we need financing to do this. And then finally, we need to recognize the interconnectivity and the complexity to migration and displacement drivers, and to begin address them not in isolation, but systematically. Sorry, that was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Birgitte.